So, who are you?
I'm David Oyelowo. I'm an actor.
Who's this?
This is Gene, who's my barber. For me, getting into character, the look of the character, the physical presence of the character is something that I tend to focus on. So I thought I'm going to actually get into character for your photo shoot. So this is me before. Gene's going to take care of me, and then you'll see the results of the album.
Fantastic. What's your relationship with excellence?
Oh gosh, good question. Well, it's
It's not a question I ask everyone. It's something I feel with you that I want to hear. I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, I've always, a principle I live by is the difference between good and great is hard work, and I think that's what excellence looks like. I've had to learn that there is a difference between perfection and excellence. Perfectionism is debilitating, is unattainable, and I think actually ultimately leads to depression. The pursuit of excellence is something that is attainable because it's basically doing your best, knowing you've done your best, and making peace with the fact that that's as much as you can do.
And there'll be failures along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially having kids and you're trying to model behavior that they will emulate, and I recognize that them watching their dad pursue perfectionism is not a good example, but excellence absolutely is. Yeah, we're gonna have to brush it and get this thing down on my head. So what you actually want is a slow burn career. You don't want to have the highs be too high and obviously the lows be too low, but consistency, I think, is how you end up with a body of work.
Gene, what's the trick to getting this grading so smooth from very, very short to...
Well, a lot of barbers have different techniques, and so you have a distinct fade and you have a blend. I'm a blender, because I'm pretty much a perfectionist just for my craft because I want to do the best job I could do. So.
See, Gene's still stuck in perfectionism.
He's still in perfectionism.
It's all right, Gene. I'm gonna pray for you.
All right, thank you.
Movie sets, TV sets, actors enough. You get a vibe of when someone has really put in the work or not. And then there's working with Forrest Whitaker on Last King of Scotland, or working with Daniel Day-Lewis on Lincoln. Or working with a director like Chris Nolan, or Steven Spielberg, or Anthony Minghella, or Ava DuVernay, where you go, ooh, there are levels to this thing. And when you're in the orbit of someone who's just that cut above, they just move through what they do in a slightly different way.
I heard you talk about him before, but Daniel Day-Lewis, where does he rate in your...
I personally think he's the greatest living actor, Daniel Day-Lewis. And the reason I say that is because for me, the definition of not only an actor, but a great actor is someone who is chameleonic, someone who genuinely transforms role to role, someone who clearly has studied humanity to a degree whereby they are able to approach humanity from so many different angles and still be convincing in the roles they play. That to me is a master of the craft, and I can think of very few actors who take as many risks as he does, who pays a price as high as he does, and who is as successful in terms of execution of his roles as he is. So yeah, he for me is the gold standard. Well, I had the opportunity to act opposite him in Lincoln, the film Lincoln. And just being around him, literally just being in his orbit, you could tell just how much work had gone into what he was doing. I've been in the orbit of Tom Cruise, the same. These artists who you just go, oh, that's why you've been doing it this long. Oh, that's why there's a connection between you and the audience that is not what you get everywhere. If you find good people hold on to them for dear life. It's one of the great things I saw being on the set with Spielberg, you know, director of photography, production designer, costume. So many of the crews have done multiple films with him, and it's a great way to just weed out the assholes. I think we want to go lower on this top.
All right.
I want to knock the curl out of it.
Okay.
I'm trying to be sexy for Greg. Darnell, how long have we been working together?
3 years.
3 years.
Yep.
Good kid.
And I've told her
11.
I've told her very clearly that I need at least 7 years notice.
Your production company, you have a social conscience to produce a certain kind of content.
Well, our motto is to normalize the marginalized, and the marginalized doesn't even mean that they're a minority. You know, women are the majority in America, and they're marginalized. And our goal of normalizing that is just an acknowledgement that filmmaking, television changes culture. One of the most potent means of both advancing and regressing culture. And so I definitely want to be on the good side of that fence. And telling stories for me, it's a means of entertainment, education, but it's also a political act. There is something very potent about the humanization of an icon like Martin Luther King. It makes people feel like social change is something that is attainable for them, not something that they wait for other people to do. I believe you cannot be what you cannot see. And so seeing evidence of resources or different kinds of people who have green light power, that engenders and encourages other people to aim for that.
You moved to LA in 2007.
Yeah, it was patently obvious that the UK was not going to provide the opportunities I aspired to. Some of that is to do with race, some of that is just to do with the size of the industry. You know, my mum was the biggest fan, or one of the biggest fans of Sidney Poitier, so I watched those movies growing up. And then obviously Denzel Washington, you know, I remember seeing Malcolm X and just being like, whoa, you know, that having the same effect on me as seeing Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot, just kind of going, is that even possible as an actor?
So you were born in Oxford, but you soon moved to South London.
My parents essentially eloped from Nigeria because they were from two different tribes. At the age of 2, we moved to South London, Balham, and then we moved to Nigeria, to Lagos, before we then moved back to London. I grew up in Islington.
How was Lagos? Because that's very different to Southeast London, right?
Oh God, you want to talk about a culture shock? Not only was it just different with the cultural thing, but it was very different familiarly. Like we didn't really have any family in the UK, and suddenly we lived on the Oyelowo compound on Oyelowo Street.
Oh wow!
In Lagos.
I read that there was royalty.
It's in the name, Oyelowo. You know, Oye means king. So I'm gonna not talk so much because I don't want
get cut.
Jean to cut me.
After thinking now.
Yeah.
No pressure, Gene.
Okay. Thickness around instead of right here.
Yeah, we'll keep it here, but we'll take it down a little bit, but just closer to the skin on the cheeks, and just take it down a little bit. Just get some of the weight out of the goatee. We're on 2 acres here, not unlike you. 3 dogs, 2 parrots. We used to have chickens.
You got 2 parrots?
Got 2 parrots.
They talk?
They squawk, which is more annoying probably. Yeah, that's perfect, Gene. Again. You got that one again. Gene the genius.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well done, Gene.
That's
Well
great. That's
done.
great.
There it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.